But I want to let's start with a broad question here. So you see generative AI and automation as really, hand in hand. They go together. One isn't really threatening the other's existence, right? Is it a complementary thing or what?
In my view, it's a great marriage made in heaven, right?
Mm,
Automation plus the generative AI is the need of the hour because when we started back in days when the RPA was really sprouting at the very early stages,
hmm
OCR was not so matured enough, right? Then came a little bit of the document automation piece,
hmm
and we still were struggling to do the data summarization, understanding the data. The natural language processing was not so great. So I think we had a lot of struggles in the early stages of RPA moving into the document processing side. And then all of a sudden we have the LLMs coming into the picture. We see there is great potential, exploding potential. In fact, we were lucky enough to actually implement a lot of generative AI automation use cases within our client ecosystem. And probably we were like lucky enough to have our hands tried in certain products that are doing generative AI as well. So yeah, it's an interesting space, and I think it's really exploding as we speak,
Yeah.
applying across the enterprise. It's not just collaboration, it's not just content generation. It's helping a lot of clients even to address customer service
Yeah.
in real time, responding to clients in real time, taking data out from various systems, and then responding to the client the right way, more human.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Um, so good. So you do see these kind of two as complementary. This is probably a good time to jump over. We might jump back to the survey for some more insights, but I want to move over to the technology spending intention survey, and let's go to our models. Let's dive right into the RPA sector since we're really talking about that. I'll go to the vendor position chart and RPA down here. So we have a sector here, and we've got a number of vendors in this space. Microsoft Power Automate is very far off to the right. This x-axis here is pervasion. It's just basically a measure of kind of penetration in the survey. Roughly approximates market penetration, but not entirely. And this y-axis really is overall net score or spending momentum. So we basically look at positive spending intentions, increasing in adoption, minus the negative ones like decrease and replace. And this is kind of where we end up. So you can kind of look at it as the higher on the chart, the more kind of spending momentum this vendor has. And then the farther right is kind of how pervasive they are. So Microsoft Power Automate, pretty dominant in this space. You could say that's partly due to the fact that it's bundled in with licenses.
Yep.
And it's been around for a little while. But you have other places, other folks in the market here like Automation Anywhere, UiPath, Appian, Blue Prism, lots of other major vendors here. Um, Talk about some of these vendors. Which ones are you familiar with? Which ones do you recommend to clients when you work with them? Do you use any internally at your firm? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of familiar with almost everything out here. Right?
hmm
We do quite a lot of our work automated through Automation Anywhere is one of our go-to platforms.
hmm
Um, UiPath is also a platform that competes in the same space where we tend to work with our clients. So Microsoft Power Automate is obviously is bundled. If I have to share an opinion out there, clients are ready to move into Power Automate provided they have clarity in the licensing models. How do they scale faster with that? I think that's something that clients may be looking at. But when it comes to other products like Automation Anywhere, UiPath, or even we talk about Kofax or WorkFusion, there is clarity on how to scale. There's more clarity that a license model brings in out there. I think, yeah, that's my opinion out there.
Yeah. So that you're saying that Microsoft Power Automate has a clear licensing array. Is that what you're saying, or are you saying it's less clear
So
than these others?
contrary, I'm saying the reason is other products seems to be having a better reasoning behind the licensing cost and
Mm,
how to use the bots and so on. The Power Automate being bundled, I don't see the clients having clear picture.
mm,
Okay, they don't have clear picture of what is going to be the license cost if I have to use X amount of automation.
right.
So that's something that clients are struggling to understand.
Yeah. Okay, good point. And I think the reason, of course, people want clarity on this is to control costs, but also ROI. People want to know that if they put in, a dollar here, is it going to generate a dollar or more in value? And
Right.
so part of it is having clarity lets you know if the vendor was really worth bringing on or not. Does that come up a lot? Do people kind of express concern about how to measure the output, particularly folks who are doing the automation, maybe to justify it to higher ups that are controlling the budgets? Do you find those sort of challenges?
There are challenges provided they identified the right processes to actually automate. Right?
Mm,
Some clients in the impulse they pick up a complex piece of automation and then they really struggle to actually amplify the ROI message. But then when it comes to us, we have a very clear path to say how to pick the use cases.
hmm
And unless there is business value in doing a process automation, say for example, a process is just saving about 30 minutes, right, in a week. It,
hmm
it wouldn't be a great process. But provided if it's a complex process, it takes like 6 hours to do, um, then it becomes lucrative for somebody to look at. But then we help our internal teams as well as the clients to actually understand how much value we can arrive at implementing this automation out here. Do we need a change in the process, the way it is working today? And I think that's the way to look at when you're looking at ROI conversations. It's not just automating the current process as is. We might have to end up doing a little bit of transformation, change the process, the way it works today. It might be looking forward and make certain changes and then look at ROI.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, understandable. And give me a sense of some of these use cases that you think of when I think of some of the traditional RPA use cases. It goes back to the early days of OCR, optical character recognition, really getting good. You have, let's say, folks in the field writing invoices or something like that, or writing up tickets for work they're doing, and then it gets sent into a central place, and someone is manually deciphering and entering all that data. Whereas now you can kind of build an RPA pipeline to scan those documents, put those into, input digital text, and store those appropriately and act on them. What other kind of use cases are there that are, kind of innovative ones to the extent you're able to share, of course, but what can we
Yep.
think of when we think of RPA? What's the power of it that's a little more exotic than that?
Yes, certainly. We see a lot of clients still stuck in the very old, fashion of automation with, for example, invoice data extraction.
Sure.
They're still stuck in the same space, but we are lucky enough to go to space where, we are able to do redlining of contracts,
Mm,
right? When a contracts come into an organization, we are able to see if this document was sent to the client and there has been some changes. And these are the space where it was changed. So comparing these two documents is really helpful for the risk and compliance and procurement. Just may miss out of so many pages in the contract. There is a chance a human eye may not be reading it right, but there is no way a generative AI system can actually do it. It can just simply compare these two documents and say, hey, these are the things that were changed. Do you want to accept, reject? So that's where the automation comes into picture. Are
mm,
these changes acceptable, or do you want to go back? Right? If the system decides, okay, we need to go back to the client and ask for why did we amend this particular statement? Can we go back to the original one? All those conversations can be triggered by the automation themselves. So this is one interesting use case that we saw in the recent past.
yeah.
And there are quite
Yeah.
a few others that we could think about. One of the clients that we were working with, especially again, the generative AI use case, they were literally struggling with certain huge amount of data that's coming from the oil rigs.
hmm
They do a lot of drilling, and there's a lot of drilling data, right? In that, we were applying generative AI to draw insights from the data. You ask certain questions about the data, you feed into the data, and then it's going to give you those insights. Based on the insights, you trigger action items
mm.
to the respective stakeholders. So it was interesting for us to do because it was the first time that we also had such an exposure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Greg, really
this is something that
Yeah, the possibilities really, I think, are exciting. I think most people think about RPA as a way to save time, particularly manual labor data entry seems to be sort of the way that people think of it as saving time, but it also, as you mentioned, it helps reduce errors, right? It reduces clerical errors. It, re is able to kind of amplify what a human being can do in terms of noticing redlining differences in a contract. So, yeah, lots of kind of benefits to the RPA space that I think, you know, are, are all there. Let's talk about the vendors a little more. So when you think about these vendors in the space, Automation Anywhere, UiPath, Blue Prism, Kofax, Appian, and then Microsoft Power Automate, what if you were to kind of give a shorthand description of what the strengths and weaknesses of each one are, what would it be? I think we often hear about Power Automate as, easy to use, but maybe not as customizable or sophisticated and complex ultimately. Whereas Automation Anywhere and UiPath are a little more tailored and able to be adapted to different things. Is that a fair assessment, or what kind of
It
are
is
the?
certainly in our view also. We also go through similar points when we deal with clients, especially when it is Microsoft ecosystem. It's
Mhm.
easy for you to use Microsoft Power Automate. But if there is a mix of ecosystem of systems, so many different varieties, a homegrown system and parts products that's involved in the automation, I think it's best to go with platforms like Automation Anywhere or UiPath or others lining up in the charts. So
Mhm.
the reason being, right, these platforms are built bottom up to do such automations, right, which can cater to any kind of systems where there is data being exposed. Yes, integration is possible. And being Microsoft, they're very easy to interact with all the Microsoft stacks. So
Mhm.
that's the easy part. Right? We have worked with quite a lot of projects in the Power Automate as well. When you talk about complex ones where you have to involve few other pieces, bringing them and stitching together as a solution has been a problem for us. It may not be true for everybody, but for us it has been a problem. Like
Mhm.
bringing in an OCR system and putting together this solution to work along. We found it difficult.